hello. Didn't see you there. Welcome to my video about the plants of North Carolina's Appalachian Mountain region. Before we start, I'd just like to say thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you enjoy it. Now, what do you say we get to looking at some plants? Alright guys, let's get started talking about some plants here. So the first one that we're going to talk about is the Carolina hemlock. The scientific name for it is Tsuga carolinea. The genus is spelled Tsuga. It is in the Pinaceae family, so obviously it's going to look kind of like a pine tree. It's going to have needles on it. So the leaves are needles that form a whorled pattern around the brown pubescent stem, and it produces 1 to 1.5 inch long cones with narrow scales. Now these cones come in green during the summer, but turn light brown in the fall when the scales open. The bark of the Carolina hemlock is also this reddish-brown color, and it has a scaly quality to it, and the tree can grow to be 30 to 70 feet high, which is pretty crazy, but it just depends on where you find the tree. Now, the Carolina hemlock grows along the cliffs and ridges of the Blue Ridge Mountains in eastern Tennessee, and it enjoys partial shade and thrives in cool areas, but it can tolerate full sun and the southern heat with protection from other plants around it. It also requires well-drained but definitely moist soil. The USD hardiness zones that it thrives in are definitely between 6 and 7, and it occurs most frequently at elevations of 2,500 feet to 4,500 feet. Now, some pretty cool interesting facts about this tree. The leaves smell like tangerines when you crush them, so that's a really cool identifier if you're looking for the Carolina hemlock. It looks very similar to another plant in its genus. It's called canadensis, but it has longer leaves and cones than that one. It is also more heat tolerant than canadensis. It is also mainly used as an ornamental tree, but it was used also by the Cherokee for basketry, building material, and other medicinal uses. The bark is considered an astringent and a diaphoretic and a diuretic, but there isn't much modern Western research to back this up, so I would err on the side of caution, definitely. Its entire range is affected by the hemlock woolly adelgid, a sap-sucking insect, and because of this, there are some conservation efforts for the Carolina hemlock, but the HWA, which its acronym, has plenty of natural predators, so the pest isn't considered too much of a serious threat, which is very nice for us, because we get to enjoy these beautiful trees. Alright, stepping down in size from the Carolina hemlock, we have the mountain laurel, which is honestly probably one of my favorite plants off this list. The scientific name for this plant is Kalmia latifolia, and it's from the Ericaceae family, which is also the blueberry family. So if you are familiar with blueberry plants, this one looks very similar to a blueberry bush. So the mountain laurel is a broadleaf evergreen shrub with glossy leaves that form a alternate or opposite and sometimes whorled leaf arrangement. The leaves are also elliptical in shape. And this bush can grow to be about 4 to 12 feet tall, and in the Appalachian Mountains, where we are currently seeing this plant right now, it may grow to be taller than 15 feet, which is pretty crazy. It can almost be considered like a tree. So the flowers are pink and white with a choriome inflorescence, and it has a cup-like shape with 5 sides. The fruit capsules appear in the fall and persist into the winter, and you'll see some of those in this video. The capsules are brownish copper in color and have 5 open valves when dry. Now, you won't be seeing these flowers in the video because all these videos were filmed in the fall, but if you look them up and you happen to see them out in the wild, you'll instantly know what plant they're from, because they are honestly shocking. Very original flower, never seen before. Love that flower. So a little bit about the biogeography and plant growth conditions about this plant. It is native to eastern North America and persists in a variety of habitats like open and sandy woods, meadows, balds, and mountain slopes. It is tolerant of a wide variety of conditions, pretty obviously, but it grows in partial shade, It grows best in partial shade with cool, moist, and well-drained soils. It thrives in USDA hardiness zones 4 through 9. Now, some interesting facts about this plant. It is very flammable, and it is the Connecticut and Pennsylvania state flower. Now, some important stuff about this plant. All parts of the plant are highly poisonous. Animals will rarely eat this plant, so I do not recommend that you do either. It has andromedotoxins, which is a resinoid, arbutin, which is a glycoside, and granotoxins in this plant. Now, these toxins interfere with muscle and nerve function, and within the first few hours, it can cause, excuse me for this, acute digestive upset, excessive drooling, loss of appetite, frequent bowel movements, colic, sweating, abdominal pain, depression, weakness, loss of coordination, stupor, watering of eyes and nose, nausea, cardiac failure, vomiting, leg paralysis, weak heart rate, and recumbency for 2 or more days. So definitely stay away from this plant. As far as putting it in your mouth, you can get up next to it and rub your face on it. We don't care, but just don't eat it. Alright, so next up we have the herbaceous perennial shrub called Canadian wild ginger. Now, the scientific name for this plant is Arcerium canadense, and is from the Aristolochiaceae family. Say that 3 times fast. It is a herbaceous perennial shrub, again, with light to dark green, cordate, which is heart-shaped leaves. Now, these leaves are about 3 to 6 inches long, and they're covered in little tiny fine hairs. Now, the flowers of this plant can be a brown and copper shade to a purple and lavender color, and they are solitary and bell-shaped with 3 spreading points or lobes. The flowers are usually hidden underneath the leaves, so you'll have to look for them, and they obviously have no ornamental value because you can't see them, but they have a sweet fragrance that attracts pollinators. Now, these plants are usually about 3 to 6 inches tall, and the leaves typically grow in groups because of the rhizomes, and these rhizomes have ginger-like fragrance to them, so that's why they're called Canadian wild ginger. Now, about the biogeography of the plant, it is often found in rocky and acidic soils with high organic matter content, especially when it's starting to grow because it loves moist soil. Once it's more established, though, it can be drought tolerant, and it prefers partial to full shade, which is perfect for the Appalachian Mountains. It is native to areas in Canada as well as the eastern United States, all the way south to North Carolina. And it thrives in USD hardiness zones 4 to 6. Now, some interesting facts about this plant. The early Americans used the roots of this plant as a ginger replacement, but it is rarely used today. And there are some folk medicine uses as a stimulant and a reliever of chest pain, but there isn't much Western medicine to back this up, so I would err on the side of caution. Furthermore, it does contain an aristolic acid, which the United States FDA describes as a carcinogenic with the potential to lead to kidney damage and cancer in the urinary tract. However, it does contain camphorol and quercetin, which are all helpful flavonoids. So just be careful with that one. Maybe a little bit might be fine, but I don't know if I'd do that or not. I'd just go get some regular ginger from the store if I were you. Our next plant is the very itty-bitty, great and wonderful partridge berry. Now, the scientific name for this plant is Michella repens, and it is from the Rubiaceae family. So the partridge berry is an evergreen, perennial, and woody herb, and it has very, very tiny little dark green leaves with whitish veins. The ovate leaves have a glossy feel to them and occur in an opposite arrangement on the plant. The flowers are fragrant, white, sometimes being pinkish, and have 4 lobes and is funnel-shaped and bloom in spring and early summer in pairs. The subsequent fruit that follows is a bright red berry that ripens in the late summer and persists in the winter. A pair of flowers result in one berry, so it was also called like twin berry, things like that. The berries also have tiny dimple and star-shaped marks on them. So the stems are very delicate and just barely woody. They're pale or green or a light brown color. The stems root at nodes that touch the ground, so the stems run along the ground in a vine-like fashion, often carpeting a whole area. And as you can see in the video, this where I found this particular patch of partridge berry, it just covered the whole base of this pine tree. So these plants can be about 3 inches high, which is really pushing it, to be honest. 1 inch is about as tall as I found them, but it can be about 3 inches high. So a bit about the biogeography. It is found naturally in forests, string banks, on rotten logs, and in bottomlands and other wet habitats throughout eastern and central North America. Now, where I found this patch, it was right beside a river, not too far away from it, maybe a few yards, so that's where it gets its moisture from. It prefers partial to deep shade in moist and somewhat well-drained soils with high organic matter. So it also thrives in the USDA hardiness zones 3 through 8. So some interesting facts about the partridge berry. The berries are usually edible but pretty much tasteless, so small mammals and birds will usually eat them. It also has a history of being a treatment for reproductive health, and it has been said to help make a successful pregnancy and labor. One study has found that partridge berry contracts uterine smooth muscles in isolated mouse tissues, which can provide some support for that claim, that it can augment labor contractions and or potentially induce labor. So keep that in mind, guys, and just look at this beautiful plant. It's one of my favorites for sure. It's super tiny and really, really cute. I love it when you can find the berries on them. So yeah, check it out. Hey guys, thank you so much for coming along and listening to me talk about the plants of the Appalachian Mountains. Before I go, I just want to give you some food for thought. Although we've been looking at the fine details of these individual plants, we should definitely try looking at these plants in the grand scheme of things, sort of like the bigger picture. These plants all work together in their environment to provide a home and food for the inhabitants of the Appalachian forest. Just by walking along like a mile-long trail, you can find these plants in very high abundance. Not only do these animals and insects need these plants, but humans do too. So let that sink in. And thank you so much for watching. Bye! Welcome to my video about the plants of North Carolina's Appalachian Mountain region. Hey guys, thank you so much for listening to me talk in the fine details about the individuals. Oh my god. Of these plants. We should think about the